right away. I'm only checking email in the morning.
So
I know. Maybe I'll check it in the afternoon.
Just the two.
don't let me get your phone number, I'll start sending it to us.
No, didn't know that. You should be shutting down that
Just kidding.
Yeah, I don't understand that. But anyway, we're about ready to start.
Tired.
I can't say it's a glare, but I think it's ready.
That's what I
Yeah, I think it's close enough.
Face stretch.
Meeting called to order. Roll call.
Here.
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 Okay, everybody's here but Billy. Has everybody had a chance to look at the previous minutes? Does everything look okay with you? Okay, they'll stand as presented. Get a motion to, I kind of jumped around there a little bit. I need a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'll say. Amend.
Okay, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay, everybody in favor? Okay, we're gonna start out with Jennifer.
Wonderful.
So, get you back on your way, so you're the farthest one from Ava.
Awesome. Okay, well, it's nice to see everybody. Again, Jennifer Schatzer with KPMCBA, so I'm the independent auditor for City of Ava. And tonight we're gonna go over the audit report, which is your bound book, and then we'll go over the two separate letters in just a moment. So let's begin on page 3. This is the independent auditor's report. And if you flip over to the next page, page 4, what this states is that we've given the city an unmodified or clean opinion. It is the best opinion you can receive, and what it means is that we believe the financial statements are fairly presented. This is consistent with prior years, and it's another good audit, so congratulations.
Thank you.
If you flip to the next page, it's going to be the management discussion and analysis. This is the portion that Peg works on that is a condensed summary of the entire audit. It's really good reading, but I am not going to go over it. So if you have free time, please read it. It's great bedtime stories. Put you right to sleep. Unless you're a numbers person. I mean, I love it, but let's skip over to, we're going to go over both income statements for all of the funds. And so the first one I want to go over is your governmental funds on page 16. Your governmental funds is, that's your general fund and your park fund. Overall, the revenues increased over the prior year just by approximately just under 100,000, and a lot of that is going to be coming from your taxes revenue, and there was also a few more grants that came in 2020. The expenses for this year were just over 2 million, and that's down from last year. Last year's total expenses for both funds were a little over 2.3 million. The bulk of the expense last year was street expenses. There was a lot of paving and things of that nature going on. Overall, this year, the general fund had income of 156,000. Park fund was at 15,000, and giving you 240,000 in general fund and 376,000 in the park fund. Now, the general fund did have a pretty generous transfer in order to help offset all of the costs that are going on in general fund. And this is normal for most cities. But eventually we try to really strongly suggest that the cities don't have such a heavy transfer in from the water, sewer, and the electric and the sanitation to help offset these costs in the general fund. It's not unusual, but we really try to let everybody know that the best situation you could have would probably have 6 months of expenses in reserve for general fund and park fund. Park fund's in pretty good shape. Now, 6 months is a pretty hefty number for general fund, so if you tried to have about 3 months, you'd be about 404,000, which is a much easier goal to get to for this general fund, especially if you're able to just continue on with your expenses being just about the same and increasing your revenues just a little bit here and there. So I do believe it is attainable, so keep up.
Parks?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a possible number for parks as far as reserve? You had said 404 possibly for general.
So, no, park is in very good shape.
Good, okay.
Yes, park is in very good shape. I mean, they've got 480,000 was your expenses for 2020, and you've got an ending balance of 376, so you could almost go the full year in park without having to offset from somebody else, from another fund. So park fund is in pretty good shape. Okay, let's go over the enterprise funds, which is your water, sewer, electric, and sanitation on page 20. Overall revenues in your enterprise funds were down about 100,000, and that's going to be all in charges for services. It's not unusual. A lot of our other cities have also had a decrease in revenue this year. The expenses were also down this year, so that's an excellent thing for you guys. 7.5 million total expenses for 2019, and this year you were just at 7.1. So it looks like every fund decreased just a little bit in expenses. Overall, the balances look pretty healthy. You've got 4.7 million in the water sewer, 1.5 in electric, and 432,000 in the sanitation fund. Now, those numbers seem pretty big, but your unrestricted actual spending, what you can do with those funds. So for water sewer, it's 909,000 of that 4.7 million is actually unrestricted. In your electric fund, it's 275,000 of the 1.5 million. And then in sanitation, it's 230,000 of the 432,000. So I don't want you to be confused to think that the 4.7 million is cash in the bank, because it really isn't, because you've got other assets that are included in that number. Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions? Okay, great. All right, so the next page 23 starts the notes to the financial statements. So anything in regards to the debt, the restricted assets, what makes up your investments, and what makes up the capital assets is all included in here. I'm not going to go through it line by line or page by page, but it is very interesting. Until you get to the pension plan stuff, that is just dry and terrible, and I don't think anybody should read it. I only put it in there because it's required.
I read it, but I struggle understanding.
It's terrible, it really is. Okay, so let's jump to page 46. We're required to get the original and the final budget for your governmental funds and make sure that for the state statutes, you are budgeting accordingly, you are not budgeting a deficit, and you are not deficit spending, and that you are also not budgeting less than what you're actually spending. So good job to the city. They were able to do a good job of both of their original and their final budget for both park and general fund. Good job. All right, we're trucking. Is everybody keeping up, or are your heads spinning?
Well, head spinning, but that's
Okay.
I don't think it matters how slow you go.
Okay, so page 51, this is your independent auditor's report on internal control in accordance with government auditing standards. And because the city is a government, we are required to evaluate your internal controls. We do not give an opinion on the internal controls of the city, but we are required to evaluate them and assess them. And every year we have the same finding, and that is on page 53. It's the segregation of duties, and it is a material weakness. In order to not have this material weakness at the city, you would have to have one individual for every single aspect of the accounting process. So somebody for payroll, somebody for AP, somebody for only reconciling bank statements, somebody who only puts in deposits, and then somebody who does the oversight of all of it. And it's just not possible for a city this size to have that many people on payroll. So what we do during the audit is we evaluate what's going on and what changes can be made and what additional checks and balances can be done. And that's what we usually do as a verbal recommendation at the end of our audit. Any questions?
How about just giving them more titles?
You just give me some more titles.
Well, you're
I'll give you
still
a
the
different
same
hat.
person.
I'll try to be a different person.
Okay, so that wraps up the actual audit report, and we can go on to the letters unless anybody has any questions. Okay, so let's start with the one that has a number 1 internal control. This is our management letter. It's our written recommendations for this city. The internal control one is the same as last year. We are just really wanting the city to evaluate your policies and procedures as things are changing, or as you have people get into new positions within the city, or as you've got people retiring. You will need to evaluate those policies and procedures to make sure that everything is very controlled. Number 2 is the new pronouncements. Because of COVID-19, the leases, GASB 87 leases standard was not implemented. So now we've got until June 2022 to really get those leases on the books. What that's going to do is that's going to tells everybody that they've got to put all capital leases and operating leases on the in the accounting software. So, and they're all going to be treated as if they were a capital lease. So in the past, only things that you were eventually going to buy, or you got a bargain purchase at the end of the lease, those are the things that were always on your financial statements in the balance sheet. The leases, like you have airport leases, copier leases, whatever leases are going here and through where you're the lessee or the lessor, that's always been down in the expenses or the revenues as, lease income or lease expense. That's now going to be pushed onto the balance sheet, and it will be reported on there. So, but there is a loophole. If the city has a lease that is not longer than a year and it is not renewable, it does not have to go on the balance sheet. It can stay in the expenses down below. So you might evaluate your leases in the future.
No.
See what you can do. Otherwise, we will help figure out a way to make sure that we've got all of the leases being reported correctly. Okay, also with COVID-19, there's been a lot of cybersecurity because there's a lot, or cybersecurity threats. There's a lot of people who are now online or working in the cloud only. And so we just really want everybody in your position to make sure that all of the servers and the backups and things like that are very secure, and that you've been evaluating it even more so since everything has happened. And then the last one, the city operations. So in the prior year, there was an unassigned fund balance in general fund of $2,900. It was a pretty rough year for general fund last year, in 2019, not 2020. So in 2020, the balance has increased significantly, and so we do have that on there that it did increase. However, there was a large transfer that had come from both water, sewer, and electric in order to offset those expenses this year. So we just are continuing to recommend that the city continue working at trying to find a good balance of having income in the general fund and decreasing those expenses, or being able to bring in enough transfers over the next few years to help get that balance back to where it should be in a nice healthy level. Okay. So those are all of our written recommendations. And then the last one is your governance letter, and that letter is our required communication with you all at the end of the audit, where we discuss if we had any difficulties in performing the audit, and we did not. On the next page, corrected and uncorrected misstatements. The city budgets on a cash basis and they do their accounting on the cash basis, so money in and money out. So at the end of the year, we help Peg do those full accrual entries to make sure that your receivables and your payables are showing up on the books. And so that's what those adjustments are listed out right here. Because of GASB 68, and that's your pension plan, we have to get an audit report from another auditing firm of the pension plan. Then we have to adjust to get the pension plan to fair market value for today for your financial statements. And that's an adjustment that on the right hand side, the net pension liability, the pension activity, that is what we hope, that's what those pertain to. If we didn't have a handy dandy spreadsheet and additional help from other auditors looking at this, I don't think anybody could do this journal entry.
Yeah, I get a nice clean version.
Okay, then we also list out if we had any other audit findings or audit issues, and we did not have any of those. And then we also did not have any other issues that we wanted to bring up to you all at the end. So another good audit. Next year will be a little bit scarier because you have the potential to have a single audit. So there will be an additional federal compliance audit because of the CARES Act. The money that's coming from the county that the city received, that's all federal funds, and that has to be audited if you hit your threshold of $750,000, which is possible with the sidewalk grant that's going on down on the square. So it might be close, it might not be a single audit. I mean, the threshold's $750,000.
It's gonna be really close.
Really,
So, I mean, if you've got any airport grants going on, if you have any police grants going on,
If
It's
it's
gonna be,
seven,
it's gonna be, we can
close.
buy, we can buy.
So, but I'll be keeping the numbers and then I'll say, no, you can't do that.
no, it won't reach it.
Okay,
So, yeah, so it'll be close, but I'm.
but it won't, okay.
I don't, no, it's not gonna reach that.
Just not.
749.
Is that 49?
No, I think 7's gonna be pretty close, just off the top of my head, I think.
Yeah, so what we would like to do is when you have a good idea of what that number needs to be, we need to get the city set up to look at some of the policies and procedures that have to be in place when there's large federal spending. There's additional policies that the federal government requires you to have adopted. So we can send those to you and make sure that you guys are compliant just going forward too.
I was just throwing the number 350 and 350, and I don't think that should be reasonably close.
It's gonna be close.
So I'm looking at about 700,
Okay.
just off the top of my head. I think that'll be.
That works. I think everybody next year, almost every single one of my clients will have a single audit next year. There's gonna be a lot of additional federal funds floating around. It's gonna be a good year.
Fun stuff.
Fun times, have by all. Looking forward to it.
You got a mask on. I think you're serious. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you for,
Thank
you know, Suzanne, thank you for everything that you do, and you've got good staff that help out, and Jennifer does a very good job as well, and your water sewer is doing much better this year than the prior year, than 2019. It feels like everybody's got it and they know what we need, so.
I'll comment. We have a good staff here, and I think you have a good staff that you bring down with you. So
Thank
we
you.
appreciate that.
Thank
very
you.
much. But I know we got a good staff.
You do.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all very much. It's nice to see you. Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas to you, and be safe going home.
I will, definitely. I'll drive slow. I don't want to hit a deer.
No, they're out. Thanks.
Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions with those entries.
Oh, trust me, I will.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, we've already got the minutes. Well, let's just stay on finance then. Did you have anything?
Well,
to add to that?
of course, I sent out, the end, of course, we didn't have our other meeting.
Right.
So at the end of, November, we were running a little over
Oh,
3.2 million as far as overall cash that's operating and the reserves. And I made myself a note here as we were going through this audit, and they're throwing out $4 million and $3 million. That is fund balance. That is not cash balance. And a lot of people think when they see this that we've got all these millions of dollars just sitting there, and we really don't. That's a fund balance. That's all of the assets and all that. Yeah, we could operate for another 2 or 3 or 4 months, 6 months out of park fund if we sold everything and still could operate. That's your fund balance. So, but we are working on trying to bring those cash reserves up. She talked about that we made fairly large transfers, and we did. We'll still be continuing to make some of those this year. But with the additional monies that we're getting back from the CARES Act, we're going to try very diligently to start sitting that money back in reserves
yeah.
and trying to meet those reserves. And so we're just kind of operating carefully as we move forward here, playing with some numbers and just seeing where we kind of end up with it all. But right now it looks really good as I was running reports and looking at it thinking, oh, love those numbers, but we're going to try to set those aside and see if we can't meet some of those reserve goals and use that to our advantage to get ahead. So I do feel optimistic that barring any major catastrophes, that we will ultimately look much better as we do our next year's audit.
Yeah, that was encouraging when I heard that 404,000.
Yeah, I'm like,
Peggy's been already juggling some numbers around, and we can, we're gonna be able to get pretty close. So, anyway, that was one of the things you've already covered, one of the deals I had to mention, but, like I say, that, Peggy's been tossing some numbers around, and after the first of the year, we'll
start looking closer
because
at
we've got, and the reason we're saying after the first of the year, there'll be some more money. We'll try to apply for more money, for the month of December through the county, so, we'll wait and see what we get. That money is getting a little tighter now. I mean, I don't know for sure how much is left, but, it's getting slimmer, but we'll turn in for some more this month, and then after that's all over with, then we'll try to figure out. But we'll bring it to the board before we. I mean, that'll be a board decision. You know what we put in reserve and where we put up. Basically, leave a lot of it up to Peggy where she recommends putting it.
Well, I feel good that, you know, starting last year, you know, we came up with just our own ideas of what we wanted for reserve monies. You know, we didn't tie it down, we just did some bookkeeping there to kind of set it back. And let's just see if we can operate up here with what we got versus what we set back. So far, we've not had to pull any of it out. And I'm really, really hopeful that as we get into next year that we can look to see, maybe we can really set some money down there and have that cushion that we've been looking for a very long time.
But that's encouraging that we talked about this a year ago, and that how close we're getting to what we set our goals at in 1 year, and I'll add to this. I'm going to jump around on this to kind of make it match what we've been talking about. There's Peggy had already talked about the money. I had that marked down on one of them, and she took it away.
I took it away.
But anyway, we're working on that. And then I'll jump up to number 3 on your line item there, in the sales tax update. Of course, we have 3 half-cent sales tax. And for the month of November, this is over and above what we got last year for the month of November, was $12,362.04. And that's just above what we got last November. But from January until end of November this year, I'm sure this is just, I wrote, Peggy probably told me something, but I wrote round figures down that we're up 149,000 above what we were last year. And I'm not real sure what to attribute that to, but I think a lot of it is more spending that has stayed here in the community. But anyway, for the past 11 months, January through November of this year, it's $149,000 up over and above what we had last year.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Of course, you gotta know, their calendar year, we run fiscal year, so I'm looking at 6 months into our last year's. So it could, in the next 6 months, it could tank, I mean, it could go the other direction. But just looking at it overall, that's oftentimes when gas prices or other things come up and it's a detriment to other people, people stay here and shop more. And I think that is a real testament to people out in our community to see that shopping at home helps our community.
Yeah, tremendous.
Mhm.
And people were scared and you could go to Walmart and they were, had one full and pulling another one and people were staying right here, but they were flat and loading up.
Let's go back up and I'll try to get in order again so I don't get lost, because I can do that real easy, but, storm sirens, as y'all know, we've got 4, and we've had trouble with 2 of them, seems like, since we purchased them. But anyway, I kind of opened mouth and inserted foot with, Blue Valley, is that the name of that? Out of Kansas City. I was talking to Brian and I said, Brian, I said, you know, we've had problems with these sirens since we got them. And I said, you know, it seems like every time we get you down here, it's $1,200 just for somebody to make the trip. And I said, it's getting to the point that I think it might be cheaper for us to just take all these new ones down and put that old dinosaur back up that we had that always worked. And he said, well, I hate it that you feel that way because I'm a representative for the company that sells them. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but that's just, I mean, we've got 2 that we've always had trouble with. And Brian was really, really nice. And he said, well, I want to make it right with you. And he did. He come down, he sent 2 guys down, and he thinks, or they think, it was brushes in the sirens themselves. And their explanation was, we're not setting them off often enough. So they recommended, let's do this at least once a month, and they set aside second Wednesday of every month at 10 o'clock. Unless it's storming or something, and then they'll go to the following day. But anyway, we may have them fixed. I hope so. But I'll have to give it to them. They were nice about it, and I think we paid for them to come down here this time. The trip down, the services for 2 trucks, 2 men. I think we paid $560, and so he did take care of us, and so like I say, open mouth and inserted foot. But anyway, it worked out for us, and I didn't say anything bad. It was just I didn't know he was a salesperson. I thought they were just working on him, but he stood good for the product, I thought. And hopefully, we're on the right track with that now. We had a crack in our boom truck, a small boom truck that we use all the time, the electric department, and that sounds like a big deal, and it is, but we've already got it taken care of, and it's back in service. And, I called today to see what it cost to get it fixed, but we don't have an invoice on it yet unless it was 1 cent.
I think so.
But anyway, it's one of those things, we gotta have it, so it is back in service. And this is the number 4, we'll jump down to number 4 here, and kind of goes along with our audit. We've got one more payment to make, and I think on the pool, and I think it's $105,000.
Well, all total, but we make an interest payment, and then we'll make a principal payment that'll actually fall into the next fiscal year. It's this next year, but it's fiscal year 2022.
Yeah.
And I think possibly with the interest, it'll be about $107,000.
Okay.
And I've got $105,000 set back.
So that money's already set aside. It hasn't been made, but that money's set aside.
Set aside and ready.
And it's,
And when will we make that payment?
It'll be sometime into like July or August of next year. So it'll be in 2021, but it's fiscal year 2022.
The money's already there.
In our
I mean,
next
we've
budget.
set aside $12,500
Per
a month, and that money's already there, so basically, that obligation is pretty much taken care
I
of.
know.
It's just waiting to write that final check, which is good news. New lights on the square. I don't know what y'all think about it, but, nobody noticed that.
I think the astronauts did.
Well, yeah, NASA called, but.
I'm pretty pleased with that. I told the guys, we had no plan whatsoever on the electrical end of it, how to do it, and I told the guys, I said, I want it lit up. So whatever it takes to get it lit up, and I said, guys, you pull into a town and there's a Stacy's convenience store here that's lit up real good, and there's one over here that's real dark. Which one are you gonna go to? So the one that's lit up. And I said, keep that in mind when you're doing the square. So anyway, they done a good job. And this is for your information on everything on that square is running off a 60 amp. 60 amps. Everything. Gazebo, lights, the pedestal for vendors, 60 amps. Now these new LED lights, just the lights, overhead lights alone are double. We've doubled the lighting on it. But doubling the lights and everything we've added 10 amps to over and above what we already had. 10 amps is all.
What did you figure that out to be
Okay,
dollar-wise?
I figured out the amperage on that, and 10 extra amps per month, per 30 days, it's gonna cost us just a little less than $2 a month more to light the square up like it
From
is
the
now.
old to the new,
From
$2.
the old is what it is now, so,
Pretty impressive.
Take that all day long.
I wondered about it out of curiosity. I thought, well, how much more is this costing us?
Right.
And a little less than $2 a month with all of these lights, doubling the light. Has 10 amps with these new LED lights, and I thought that's pretty interesting that the technology we have today compared to what we had just a few years ago. So that's pretty interesting that we can do that, and I've had comments from people, merchants on the square, that they feel safe closing down their shop after dark and walking to their vehicles, and that's what we're looking for. The treatment plan, I was hoping to have a little better news for you, but it seems like they just disappeared Friday and nobody knows for sure where they did. So, but all their equipment's here, so apparently they're coming back. I was expecting to get all that done this week, with pretty weather. But apparently they decided to take the week off for Christmas, and they never let anybody know. They just disappeared. But we've got all of their equipment over there, and so they'll have to come back to get it.
They'll come back.
They'll have to come back to get it. Update on our sanitation and street shed over there. We've, I don't know if you've noticed, of course, the red iron is up and all of the metal on the sides is up. And all they like is put it on the roof itself. They're supposed to hang the doors, overhead doors, Tuesday of next week. Our electric department has already got the power into the building, and so I told them, I said, I'd like to get it operating next week, and at least with plugs that we can plug all of our sanitation trucks, keep them, plugged in the wintertime. And so I hope by the end of next week we can have our trucks inside and plugged in. So, and it looks like we're going to be able to get there. So, if everything, the overhead doors come in Tuesday, and I said let's focus on the wiring part of it, just getting plugs at least where our trucks can be plugged in and all the equipment. So, and I think we're going to get there, unless some bad weather sets in. But I think we'll be fine. Landscaping on the square. I'm kind of excited about that. Joe Johnson works for the city. That's something that he used to do, and I called him up and asked him if he'd like to just take on that job, and he jumped on it. He said, yeah, he said a guy that he used to work with up north of Mansfield, and he visited with him, and I hope to get a set of plans. And he let him know that, you know, we're looking for a set of plans that we can go by and either pay you a fee for the plans or maybe buy plants through you, but we'd like to put them out, our people. And this guy seemed to be on board with that, just pay him either so much for the plans, the drawing, or buy the plants through him. And he said, you can, if you decide to do that, he said, you can compare my prices with anybody. He said they'll either be equal or less. So I hope next week we can come up with a landscaping plan for the square, and of course, I want it to be pretty, and that's the reason I'm getting somebody else to do it besides me. But anyway,
Save money.
yeah, we'll save money by keeping me from doing it, because you didn't do it twice. But anyway, if I get them, I'll get a hold of everybody, and I'd like for as many people to see these plans and, you know, look them over, and I plan to share them with people on the square that are down there and get their input and see what they think. And so I'm kind of excited about it. I'd like to see shrubbery and grass, and I told the landscaping guys that I'd like grass, and at least in the center, because each year we have the little kids with Child Abuse Awareness Month. They put the little pinwheels, so I want grassy areas, and you know, I don't want all shrubs, and I want grass to where they can put their pinwheels up. And so, and he's good with that. Stan mentioned, he called me this morning, and he asked me about trash routes Thursday, excuse me, we're off Friday, but we're gonna be here until noon Thursday. So our trash routes will be run Thursday. And the same for next week, they'll be run Thursday, and then, but then the Friday routes they'll be doubled up, and they'll be run on Monday. So, but anyway, Stan asked me that this morning, but we will run our Thursday routes. Okay, I need a motion. Actually, this position was up for the Ava Housing Authority. Donna Dixon's position was up back in November. So I would like a motion, if y'all would, to reappoint Donna Dixon for a 4-year term on the Ava Housing Authority. If somebody would do that.
I'll make the motion.
Noel made a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Keith second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Does council have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add, I just had a question on the reserve fund goals for Peggy. The auditors recommend 3-month reserve, and I'm looking at our reserve fund goals here at the bottom. Is that what that is? How do we come up with those numbers?
Yeah, those were guesstimates when we were originally looking at that, and I was looking a lot at
Guesstimates about 3 months?
3 months.
What are they? I'm sorry.
For general fund, we were talking about 500,000.
Okay.
And so she mentioned 404 there, so I think that's a good
Okay.
goal. 100,000, she mentioned 6 months, but I don't know, I think 3 months is more. And looking at the dollar amounts for park, I think we're real close on that as well. Not as sure on the other funds. I'd have to go in here and actually look at the expenses and divide it out, but that was just at the initial, we thought we could just set some initial goals.
Okay, so that's what we're working toward now, is that
Right.
3-month recommendation by the auditors.
Yep, that's kind of what we were shooting for.
Yeah, and I think, of course, I started putting together some figures, and the mayor got a little stressed and said, whoa, wait, don't start moving. I said, no, I wrote test up here, I'm just playing. And he said, oh, okay. got a little wound up, but as we go into this next year, we're gonna look and see how close to maybe some of these original goals we can get. and then we may need to reset them if a fund is spending more than what we, because, you know, just like electric fund there, I think we had 1.5. Well, 1.5 is not the operating. 1.5 would cover 3 months of moped electric bills, but it's not gonna operate your fund.
Right.
So, but we thought, well, at least if we could get a 1.5 in there, maybe that could help
Yeah.
keep it set to where we wouldn't be quite in dire straits. But, you know, I just think it's really exciting to think about having, you know, like sanitation, just for an example. If we could get to that, I think a 250,000 I have there, if we look at buying another trash truck or something, we can fund it ourselves.
Yeah.
We can borrow from this and then make those payments back and save the city all of that interest money that we could. So that's kind of where I'm looking forward to seeing some of that happen. I think we're gonna be a lot more
Right.
self-sufficient and then it's kind of like that snowball effect. I think it's gonna start building on itself.
Great.
I have no more, I guess, for open session, but I'd like to have a motion to go into closed.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Stan and
I'll
Keith,
second.
second, all in favor?
I have one question.
Sure.
What was the company name that fixed the storm sirens?
Blue Valley.
Blue Valley.
Blue Valley, okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.